Hey, how you guys doing? This is James. Once again, this is Have a Conversation. I like to talk about pop culture topics, world events, current events, so we can lead ourselves into a better future for the future generations of this world. And right now, I want to get back into George Floyd and the riots that are happening, unfortunately, in his name. And the big concept that I want to talk about right now is a concept that I was talking to with a friend about on Facebook here, and I'll share the video with her. I'm not gonna mention her name, but the concept that I alluded to and I mentioned is the humility factor. And the thing is, the reason why I call it the humility factor is because if we use humility and be humble in life, the riots would not happen at all. They would not happen. And who knows what the definition of humble is? The basic definition of humble is having a low, modest outlook or inlook or at yourself. Basically, thinking of yourself less and thinking more of others first. It's not thinking less of yourself. That's why I get it confused. It's thinking of yourself less. In other words, not being selfish. Humility is the opposite of selfishness. So here's why I say humility would have really helped stop the riots and everything that's going on. Starting with the president. I'll start the top down because that's where that's how everything bad happens, is the top down. Okay, the president, if he had have not did his photo op with the whole church thing and grabbing the Bible and going and taking a picture from the church, and the reporter asking him, is that your Bible? He said it's a Bible. If he hadn't have said the things that he said about if governors and mayors, if you cannot control your cities, I will dispatch the military, the active duty military, and I will have them do it for you. If he hadn't have said that, and he had have said, these riots must stop, this is not what we do in America, we don't riot just because we're upset, we organize and protest, that's fine. If he had said something to the effect of, these riots are because of George Floyd, I'm sure he wouldn't have wanted that, his family wouldn't have wanted that. If he had said something like that, and led in with that, instead of saying, oh, if you guys can't control your states and your cities, I'm going to dispatch the military, we'll do it for you. No, that's not humble. That's thinking of yourself, sir, Mr. President. Saying if you can't control something, I'll do it for you, is not thinking of the people who are your constituents, the voters. Thinking of the voters first is saying, what we're doing is not right. This is what I approve of. Rioting is not what we approve of. Do this and not do that, and we'll be better. I hear what you're saying, but this is not the right way to do it. That would have been a humble thing to say, because he thought of himself when he said what he did say. The police department. The police, I would say, are being humble a little bit, because they're not wanting to hurt anybody. They're doing what they're doing by arresting people and trying to back people off to try to mitigate the crime. So the police are basically trying to do their job. The citizens of America are the ones who are not being humble. And then y'all might cut me up, and y'all might destroy me, and y'all might call me all kinds of names on this, but here's my point. I'm going to stand behind I said it, and I'm going to stand behind it. People of America, you're not being humble right now. Here's why. We're already in the middle of a pandemic. The pandemic started in basically February, March. Last week of March basically was when the crap hit the fan worldwide, basically. And people are already hurting. People are already out of work. Small businesses are hurting right now. So, people of America, the reason why you're not being humble, you're destroying and looting. That's criminal activity right there. If you were being humble, you would just protest and not loot and riot. Looting and rioting is how you're not being humble right now. You're thinking of yourselves, and you're thinking of another black man has been killed by the police, which is wrong. Yes, it's wrong. However, the way we're going about our anger is not right. We don't need to tear up our cities because George Floyd wouldn't have wanted that. If you saw his brother on the news, you say, "What are y'all doing? What are y'all doing?" My family was a God-fearing family. My family was a peaceful family. Stop this. Find another way. So, I said all that to say this. People of America, channel your anger into Martin Luther King style marches. That is the way to do it. And I've already been on Facebook, and people have already said those didn't work, and protests and rattling some cages does. Rattling cages and protesting and rioting, rattling cages and rioting the way we're doing right now doesn't do anything but destroy our cities, and we have to come up with resources and funding to rebuild everything again. We need to practice humility. We need to think of others before ourselves. And if we think of others before ourselves, we would be marching the streets and not destroying police cars and not destroying businesses that had nothing to do with what happened to George Floyd. Tearing up Macy's, tearing up Nordstrom, tearing up Old Navy, tearing up Starbucks, tearing up these businesses. Yeah, they make billions of dollars, but they had nothing to do with what happened to George Floyd. None of these businesses have nothing to do with the killing of George Floyd. Nothing. So that's why Terrence Floyd, and I ask you, what are you doing? March in droves across your cities. Hold signs. Chant. Have speakers. Hold rallies. And this is what I want to say in my last video about George Floyd. Go into the Senate chambers and go into the city council chambers and demand to be heard. Tell your elected officials, if this keeps happening, you will not have your job tomorrow. That is how you do it. Because injuring innocent bystanders and things like that, and destroying businesses and tearing up the community is not the way to go about your anger. And I said this on Facebook too. Rioting is the bigger version of if someone steps on an expensive pair of shoes, or someone accidentally bumps into you, you didn't like being touched, you go and say, "You bumped into me," or you stepped on my Pumas, you must now get beat up. That's what fighting someone because they scuffed your Puma, or because they bumped into you in line, or because they cut you off in traffic or something like that. Fighting someone individually and rioting is the same thing. It's just on a bigger scale. So think about what you're doing. We need to change our hearts, change our minds. The only way to get better from this is that, and my friend also said this, so when do we start teaching love and not hate? It starts at the beginning. It starts at home. I'm not saying any of these people don't have love in their heart, but at the same time, you're using the anger from what you see on the news to fuel the fire for what you're doing. It takes conversation. It takes the humility of listening more and talking less in order to build the love up in your heart, in order to talk to people, to just get along, and to just become brothers and sisters. We're all human out there. We all have the human tendencies, but using humility to think of others more and yourself less gives us that first step to peace tomorrow. It gives us that first step to peace tomorrow. Think of yourself less. Think of others more. And that way we will better be able to not riot. That way we'll be able to peacefully march and protest. Just the same way that Martin Luther King protested. and paved the way for us today. Peacefully march. Peacefully protest. There were rallies down the street in Seattle from where the riots were a couple days ago. You had peaceful rallies 2 blocks away from where the rioting was 2 days ago in Seattle. And all I can say is that is the separation of the devil and God. That's all I can say about that. March, hold rallies, and speak, not protest. That's not what George Floyd would have wanted, and that's not what Terrence Floyd. That's what Terrence Floyd said yesterday to the crowd. George would not have wanted this. Peacefully protest. Love you guys.